Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the GW2 lore summary, this time in the Plains of Ashford. Sorry there's been a bit of a delay between them actually. Basically, I filmed it, and I wasn't very happy with it. So, I've decided to do it all again, so hopefully it turns out better this time. And I've got a new headset this time, so fingers crossed this is coming through okay. Again, I would hate to have to do it again, so I really hope it is. But if you're seeing this, then it's fine. So, in my opinion, it's working fine. So, hopefully it is. Anyway, on with the video. So, coming to Plains of Ashford this time. Bit of a change from the Flame Frost stuff I've been in recently. Now, this area has so much stuff to it. So, basically, the reason I wanted to refilm is because the others I felt like I was just kind of reading off my information, and it wasn't really. I'm going to try and be a bit more dynamic about it and try and do it from memory as much as possible. So there is quite a lot to do, so I might split it into two, but I did before, but I may just film it in one sitting. So I'll see how that goes. But we'll see how long it's been going on for. So basically, yep, this is Plains of Ashford. This is the Char starting area, as Char characters to be aware. Now, according to the GW2 description, it says, long ago the human kingdom of Ascalon occupied the Plains of Ashford. Now the ruins of that once great nation tumble across the landscape, and the ghosts of the past haunt any who pass through their territory. As you can see, it's one of the, well, if you don't know, it's one of the main Iron Legion territories. Of course, the Black Citadel, the Iron Legion Imperator is kind of, it's based in the Imperator's core here. And of course this is, a hub for all Char, but these two areas in particular are renowned for the Iron Legion. And as we'll see as we're going around, or some of you might be aware, there's a lot of human ruins, and you can see ghosts from the foe fire. So I'll explain that a bit more in detail. But before I go into individual locations, the good thing about this area is that there's a lot of lore that links into just the area itself. So what I mean by that is Plains of Ashford. So Ashford, it was a village in the first game which you could visit. It was kind of like a small, peaceful village. Farming was kind of the main thing around it in pre-searing, and you were able to go to it. In the post-searing, but of course it was ruined and plagued with enemies at that point. Now, probably the main feature of the area was Ashford Abbey. You can see the ruins here. Now, the reason that was important is it was one of the, there weren't that many outposts in pre-searing, so it was one of the few there. But it was the first place you encountered Brother Menlo. Now, if any of you are aware of factions, you'll obviously know his name. He's a very key character in the first kind of expansion they brought out for Guild Wars 1. But he was a hero monk, basically. He accompanied you throughout Prophecies, the first game as well, or you could do if you chose him as your henchman, and he was key to the faction story. It's a really important character, and this is the first time you come across him. Also, I believe Eve you come across for the first time there, who's a necromancer, but I'll explain that in a second, because that's to do with the catacombs. But before I go into that, so yeah, there wasn't really much to it. It was just NPC him there. There were priests and priestesses of Dwayne, or NPCs to that effect, There was a statue of Dwayne, and kind of like the others in Guild Wars 1, you could /kneel the emote in front of them, and it would summon an avatar of Dwayne. And that was the same with any of the statues throughout the game world. So, and you could use them for blessings. So if your world had favoured the gods, which would cycle basically between worlds depending on how they were, the players getting achievements there basically. You could pay them gold and get boost your attributes, basically making you stronger in combat and things like that. So it was kind of a nice little touch, and it made you feel like you were interacting with the gods a bit, and it was kind of cool. And that was there as long as I can remember, actually. So it was the first time you came across a statue like that, and that NPC actually gave you quests, I think, rather than blessings, because it was in an outpost. But yeah, kind of cool. And then there was a thing called the catacombs. Now these are different to the Ascalonian catacombs, which is the dungeon, which I might do a separate lore video on, but it comes into some of the stuff I'm talking about later. But essentially, they were underneath the abbey, and it was kind of cool because there were murals there to the other gods, to all of the gods, sorry. And it just kind of gave you a bit of an insight into how sacred they were to the humans, and it was kind of the first time you interacted with them other than just talking to NPCs, I guess. And as I was going to say earlier, there was another hero, the necromancer you met, called Eve, and you meet her for the first time in the catacombs, and she gives you some quests so you can find out what it's like to be a necromancer, because in the first game you could pick a secondary profession. So you could see Menlo for monk stuff, you could see Eve for necromancer stuff, etc. So yeah, it was kind of cool. And it was actually quite a tough area for pre-searing the catacombs. I mean, it had the first time you came across undead, and it was, yeah, one of the more challenging areas in pre-searing. So maybe not that much in terms of the whole game, but you know, it was a cool place to go. And it definitely felt very different to the rest of pre-searing, because that was all peaceful, and you know, and here you've got these undead lurking, and shadow beasts and stuff. So that's kind of what the Abbey was about. Now, it was renamed Sardlac Sanitarium. I don't really know the significance of that name. I could do a bit of research into that, but you could still go to it in the post-searing. And in that time, it was a place of kind of rest and recuperation, looking after the wounded, basically, that kind of idea. So it kind of fulfilled kind of a similar role, but obviously it was much more dire in post-searing. I've realised I've said the searing quite a lot. Now, something this video and the others have brought up actually is that I need to do some general lore videos, because there's so much that ties in before you can properly explore them. But I think, even saying that, I think I'll just go into it briefly now, just because I think it is important. So, those of you that don't know, the searing was, it happened at the time of the first game, and if you started Prophecies, you started in the pre-searing area. Now, this is kind of, Ascalon was kind of like it looks now, you know, kind of peaceful looking, nice fields, nice trees, except the humans were there, and the Char were your enemy, and you were locked in battle with them. And it got to the point where the humans were kind of winning almost. They were, you know, they were at least pushing the Char attacks fewer and fewer, and then eventually, kind of almost out of nowhere, but you hear about it if you read some of the other lore being planned, the Flame Legion, they cast down this spell called the Searing, and then everything just fucks up for the humans, basically. It just destroys their land, destroys the settlements, kills so many people. So, and then you get zoned into the post-searing world once you get to that point. And that's quite interesting, because the fact they give you this pre-searing world and they just take it away from you, and you just got to go into the post-searing world, and it was kind of cool. So, yeah, that's kind of the searing in a nutshell, but I'll go into it in more detail in another video probably. So, that's kind of Ashford. Now, the first area I want to show you, now I've successfully rambled for a long time, was the vault. And actually, I can waypoint, which is brilliant. Now, this is a place called Barradin's Vaults. Now, Char characters, you've done the initial instance, as you will have done if you're a Char character. Oh god, straight away. Standard. I'm just going to run and talk. You will have been down here, and you will have fought the ghost of Barradin. Why am I not dodging? Oh, I know why. And also, why are there oozes? I swear there were ghosts here before. Weird. Don't know. These are the vaults. You know, pretty standard. Now, these actually looked a lot like the catacombs in Guild Wars 1 underneath the Abbey. So, don't know if that's any coincidence, but I like the style of them, and they're pretty cool in this. So, no complaints there. So anyway, I'm just going to run out of here because basically I don't want to fight this. Now, going back to Barradin. Now, you don't really find that much out about him in the initial instance, but you can kind of guess, and there's some information. He was a human noble, basically. You could interact with him in the first game. He was an NPC, gave you some quests in pre and post searing, and he was kind of affiliated with the Ascalon Vanguard. I don't think he was a member of it, but he was kind of that kind of elite group. Now, the Ascalon Vanguard, which is an elite group of fighters, you know, Prince Rurik was a member of them, who we'll talk about more later. So, yeah, he was part of quite an elite force, kind of renowned fighter, as well as a renowned noble. Now, an interesting thing about him that I didn't actually know until I watched Wooden Places video, which, if you haven't seen them, check them out, because they're awesome. It's really good lore, much better than I am. He was the brother of the king before Adalbert, so technically, he is the rightful heir to the throne. Now, I don't really know how Adalbert got the throne, and the reasons behind it, but it's just kind of interesting that Baradin never got there. And you never really get the impression that he's bitter about it. Maybe I didn't read into the speech that much, but yeah, it's just interesting that he's got the kind of the lineage in him. He's actually descended from the original human king. So yeah, it's kind of a little interesting snippet about him. Now, he was also really closely linked to Prince Rurik. Now, for those of you who don't know, again, Prince Rurik was the son of King Adalbern at the time. He kind of led the players across the Shiver Peaks. I think I mentioned him in the Wayfarer video briefly, but essentially you followed him for a lot of the early game. I don't want to give away spoilers about him because I will talk about that at some point, but yeah, basically you kind of were part of his vanguard, you became part of, and you helped him out with a lot of things around Ascalon. So now he was due to be wed to Baradin's daughter, a lady called Althea, or Lady Althea, she was known. Now, there's kind of like a sad tale behind it, because in pre-searing, there's all this kind of happiness, you know, everything's la-di-da, it's all good, and then the searing happens, and as I said, fucks everything up, because you find out that Althea was actually captured by the Char around the time, or just after the searing, and then she's sacrificed to their fire gods by the Flame Legion, and you find this out as a quest, as part of a quest, and then you tell Baradin, obviously he's upset, and then he sends you on another quest, which is called Althea's Ashes, and essentially involves you going to this area, which was called the Flame Temple Corridor, and you had to fight your way there, quite a tough area for early game, I guess, and and you had to find her, the ghost of Althea, and you had to find her ashes, which you could then bring back to Baradin. He could inter them properly and put his mind at rest, basically. So, yeah, he was kind of an important person in both pre and post series, kind of an important NPC, gave you a few quests, but he was never... Now that I know the significance of his backstory, it makes him seem more significant in my mind. At the time, I didn't really understand that, but now, the fact that, you know, he was descended as king is even more interesting, really. So, yeah, that's kind of Baradin. And Baradin's vaults is supposedly his resting place, and obviously you fight him in the Char thing, so that's the first place I want to show you. Callahan's Haunt I'll show you next, so I'll go up here. Yeah, little note, actually Baradin, when you met him in Pro Series, this place called Pike Square now, that's really awesome. There's loads to say about that, I think, or at least I remember doing a lot there, so that's, I think it's up here, Fire Heart? No. There it is, Iron Archers. Anyway, I'll do that in a later video, but that's where you came across him in post-searing, so kind of cool. So, Callahan's Haunt. Right. Brilliant. I'm going to res. So, this one doesn't have that much to say about it. Now, last time when I originally did try and film, there was actually the event I wanted happening here. So, it'd be great if it was, but I don't think it is. Nah, it's not, is it? Basically... there's an event here, and the cool thing about it is the speech he uses is actually taken from... This is where the area where he spawns. It's taken from Guild Wars 1. Now, he was kind of a minor character. You came across him in the mission called the Great Northern Wall, which was the first mission you came across in the first game. And missions were kind of like separate instances, which you did, and they progressed the story and got your title if you did all the objectives and stuff like that. So, yeah, kind of an important point in the game, because the first time you came across it. But he didn't really have much to do with that, really. You find out he's associated with the Vanguard, who I mentioned before, and he's in charge of basically the guards along the wall, the northeastern part. Now, at the time, this was kind of the northeastern part, because you couldn't go that far east, but yeah, so you guard this area. And yeah, in the event, he uses the same dialogue that he used in the Great Northern Wall, which is kind of cool. And I haven't actually heard that dialogue because I came to the event a bit late last time. But if you ever do get a chance, he's speaking to 2 other NPCs and just, yeah, listening. Or if you played the first game, you might recognise it. So that's kind of cool. So that's basically Callahan Haunt. Not much more to say about it. Captain Callahan, she is known. Now the next place. I think I'm making better progress in this video, so I think I should do it in one. this might be quite a long one, so I apologise in advance. Now this is cool, right? This place is called Dead God's Lair. Now this, I remember being a location you could visit in the first game. Now of course it wasn't called that at the time. I'm just going to go past that gruel. But this big statue is what we're talking about. Now, there's loads of gruel around here, and they keep talking about a god they're worshipping called Badazar. Now, that might seem familiar to many of you, but basically it's the human god Balthazar, as you can see there. Now, this was kind of, the ground was higher up here at this point, and you could visit here. There was an NPC here in both pre and post-steering, I think. In pre it was skills, I think there was something there post-steering. And yeah, I kind of didn't realise that until I came here, because it looked so similar to how it was, and I'm pretty sure you could visit this. But it's kind of interesting that the gruel are calling him Badazar. Now, I'll show you, though you'll see in other videos, or you may notice yourself already, but a few of the other races, or the lesser races they're described, worship some of the human gods, but they take them as their own. And they don't really see them as human gods, because of course the human gods are meant to left here. But it's kind of interesting the fact that these races are worshipping these gods kind of suggests that there might be some power still to them, or maybe the gods haven't truly left here. You know, it's quite an interesting point to do, and these areas could become quite important to the story if they decide to expand on that side, maybe. I mean, this could become an active shrine again, you know. So, it's interesting. And like, I like the event, like, drive the gruel away from Badazar, no Balthazar statue. And actually, if you read the little plinth here, this is kind of cool. It's just a little snippet. So it just says, the ancient Pike's engraving, Balthazar, god of war and fire, worshipped by those seeking strength for battle. Someone has crudely carved the word Badazar over and over again. Of course, the gruel. So yeah, it's kind of all there is to say, but I love little references like that. So it's pretty awesome. So that's Dead God's Lair. Now this place is called Shards of War. It's only really one big shard, really, but there ain't really thing to say about this. This is what the crystals looked from the searing. Now, so when the searing was cast, these rained from the sky, and it's kind of cool because if you haven't played the first game or you just want a reminder, this is kind of what they look like. So this is the only one that's in the Plains of Ashford, actually. I think there are some further up in Iron Marches or Diassa. But this is the only one in Plains of Ashford. As you can see, the land's kind of recovered. The Flame Legion, obviously not the kind of key legion anymore, but yeah, this is just a remnant of the searing. So it's kind of cool. And this destroyed a lot of Ascalon and wrecked it for the humans, basically. So yeah, that's the Shards of War. Don't think there's anything else to say about that. Now, there's one I want to show you over here called the Viewing Hill, which is quite a lot to say about. But first I'm going to do this one, because there's two up there, actually. So this is just another quick one. This is a place called Camp Kieran. Now, you'll see the area has a lot of separatists in. So it's basically the separatists are humans. If you didn't know, that humans that believe the war with Char should continue, they still see the idea of a truce as, I don't know if they say it's fruitless, but they think it's wrong because the Char drove the humans out of Ascalon and destroyed it with the searing and all this kind of stuff. So they believe that, and I've always found it quite interesting as a human, the fact that they are, I mean, obviously you're working for the truce and stuff, but it'd be interesting if you could actually talk to them, interact with them a bit more. I think there may be some questions where you do, but most of the time you just kind of kill them and don't ask questions, really. So it'd be interesting because obviously if you were really immersed in your race's history, you won't have an opinion on it yourself. So that's all this is a separatist camp anyway, and the reason it's named Camp Kieran, just the name really is the main significant thing about it, really. Kieran Thackeray, who was a descendant of, is an ancestor, of Logan's as well as Gwen. He was kind of like a hero from the first game. You only really met him in Guild Wars Beyond, but he was I'm trying to avoid combat. He was a kind of a key character, and obviously he marries Gwen, and of course if those two hadn't made the babies, then Logan wouldn't be around, or not as we know him anyway. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And they kind of have a habit of doing this separatist, naming their camps after kind of old Ascalonian war heroes and things. And of course, Gwen and Kieran, more so Gwen, I think, were renowned for kind of standing up to the Char. I mean, in the first game, it's more seen to be the Char, but then you learn that it's kind of the Flame Legion, not really the Char. But just taking it from Guild Wars 1 perspective, they are kind of very... I mean, her parents are killed by the Searing, and there's a mission you can do as a bonus mission pack where you have to... She's like being captured by the Char, and you have to escape and stuff, and it's really interesting. You can kind of see the reasons for her disliking them, so that's why they've chosen that name anyway. So, yeah, that's all they're pretty much to say about that one. Now, this is the Catacombs waypoint. Now, if you've done the dungeon, you'll have been here, but this is the first dungeon you can come across. I definitely recommend doing it, like Picordicus. They're really fun, the dungeons, in my opinion. And they're actually quite a great way of making money. So, well, they seem to be for me anyway. Especially as I get, like, crapple from fractals at the moment. But anyway, I digress. The Viewing Hill. Okay. Now, I didn't know much about this until I read up on this myself, actually, so I shall try my best. Oh god, am I going to have to... Is there a reason that there's nothing there? Okay, I think I should be alright. Anyway, oh shit. Okay, right, so this is just a small hill overlooking the ruins of Ascalon City, which is over there, which I'll explain a bit. Now, it doesn't really look that significant. However, this is important for Char characters in particular. There was a Char called Fry Fireburn, and he had a warband called the Fire Shadows. And at the time of... After the Searing, I think it's about 20 years after the Searing, the Char had managed to push the humans back to Ascalon City. You know, Rin was the capital, and that's underneath where the Black Citadel is now. And they had pushed them back to here. And Fry and his warband had been tasked with assassinating the king by the Flame Legion Imperator and by the superiors, basically. And they didn't manage to do so. And the reason is because the king's chief courtier, a guy called Savione, he had come out to the warband and told them not to continue and warned that the king was going mad. This was just before he cast the Faux Fire. Now, before I explain what that is, basically, the king, obviously, he'd been driven here. He was kind of getting desperate. And in his madness, he ended up stabbing Savione, to cut a long story short, because Savione tried to prevent him from casting this terrible spell, which of course he did succeed in doing, which is why we see all these ghosts. Now, because Fry and his warband, they returned to try and warn the other Char, look, the king is going mad, we should evacuate the area, or we should be wary, we shouldn't push. Now, whether the Flame Legion just didn't believe him or they chose to ignore him and his warband, who knows, but they tied them to posts here on this hill so that they could see the city as it was invaded by the Char. And of course, when the invasion happened, that's when King Adalbert cast the Faux Fire. And basically, the Faux Fire created all these ghosts. It forever, well, until something I'll mention later, but basically it doomed all these ghosts of humans to be locked in a constant conflict and refusing to give up their homeland to the Char in a kind of last act of desperation. And it's said that Fry and his warband's fur turned white due to the horror they saw. And because of them, basically, everybody knows what happens with the Faux Fire, because they were there to witness it, and survived the ordeal, although changed, as the fur suggests. So, I'll just read, this is the plaque to it. Historical significance. So here atop Viewing Hill, the hero Fry Fireburn of the Flame Legion, well, tongue twister, along with his warband, were forced to witness the doom of the Char and humans alike and the sorcerous destruction of Ascalon City. Bollocks. Keep moving my mouse. Though Fireburn had warned his brethren of King Adalbern's trap, they disregarded his pleas and stormed the city, leaving Fireburn and his warband bound upon Viewing Hill. When Adalbern's magic devastated the city, Fireburn and his warband were the only survivors. They spread news of the tragedy and live on in legend. So yeah, kind of interesting. Didn't know much or anything about that, actually. Right, I'm going to avoid that vent. Run away. To a place called Faux Fire's Heart. Now, this is pretty much the last location I want to show you, but it's quite a bit to say, so I know this is going on a while, so I apologise, but there's a lot to say. Without aggroing the fuck out of everything. Basically, this pillar of light, this is Fofire's heart, so this is where this awful spell that the king cast happened. Now it stretches from the surface and meant to go down to the catacombs, supposedly where the remnants of the sword he used to cast it are. And now that was a sword called Magdir. Now, some of you might be aware that of Ritlock, he wields this flaming dragon sword. Now that's kind of archetypal of humans, and especially the royalty at the time. And the sword he has is actually Sahothin. Now, interestingly, that used to be Rurik's sword. Prince Rurik, as in Adalbern's son. Now, Magdir was the sister sword of Sahothin, so they're kind of twinned. And they were given to the Ascalonian royalty as a gift from Ur, their Orion artifacts, to ensure kind of ongoing peace. And it's said that if one of the swords is brought back to the epicenter of the Fofire, so this kind of area of the catacombs, in the hands of an heir of King Doric, who was the first king of the United Human Kingdoms, without going into it too much, then the spirits will finally be put at rest. Now, there are only two known in the descendants, of King Doric. Now, one is Queen Jenna, who humans be aware of, and some of you maybe she's the queen of the humans at this time in Divinity Reach. And there's another one I found out about, which I didn't know about, called Commander Samuelson. And you find out about him when you go to Ebenhawk, which will be a later video. That's down in the Fields of Ruin, down here. But Ebenhawk's down here. And apparently there's a vigil quest, and you find out, I haven't done it, so you find out that he's in line to, he's a descendant of King Doric, so pretty interesting. So, yeah, that's kind of the significance of Fofire. That's where it was from, and the swords kind of have some resonance and power there, so. Now, a bit more info. This is Ascalon City. Now, this was an outpost you could visit in the first game, and it was kind of quite a big, important place. It was a hub, kind of like Lion's Arch was at the time. There were players, you could trade, use banks, merchants, etc. Maybe not as busy as Lion's Arch, but it was the first place you zoned into in post-series. So, it was kind of cool, because it was the first time you got to see Tyrion map as a whole, and you kind of felt like you were really going out into the game a bit more. And, it's, as you can see, it's kind of like in the centre of Ascalon, near the Great Northern Wall, kind of central, I guess, if you include all the east stuff. And I found out something a bit interesting about it. Might be of interest to some of you, I'll mention anyway. It was going to be called Kylo. Now, apparently they changed it because of translation issues. And then they changed the name to Ascalon City, and it was only ever meant to be a temporary name, but they never changed it back. And but as some of you will know from PvP, the Battle of Kylo is, of course, a PvP map. And that's actually, they've changed the law to do with that now, and it's now I think a fortress that was to do with some guilds fighting, without going into it too much. And they've chosen to be the law. But this place was meant to be called Kylo. So, but the name Ascalon City stuck, because it does seem like kind of a generic name, like you could just go Kryta City, Ascalon City, so. Yeah, kind of interesting. And it was ruined in the first game. Now, obviously not to the same extent, because Fofire hadn't happened, but it was kind of ruined. It was still had humans in. It was kind of like a bastion of their struggle against the Char. And it's here, like I said, 20 years after the series, the king has his last stand with those humans. So now it's all that's left is really just ghosts. It's Ghost Town. You can't really interact with them, even as a human. And they're kind of just echoes, really, of the past. They're not really anything to do with... They're not kind of good spirits, that you can interact with and talk and reason with. They just want to kill you and take all your things, basically. But yeah, basically, that's the lore of... Am I going to arrive? Yeah, why not? Oh, okay, brilliant. And that's basically the lore of Plains of Ashford. So, I'm sorry it went on for quite a while, but as you can tell, there is a lot to say about it. And I don't think the next one will be as long, so don't worry about that. Alright, well, thanks very much for watching, everyone, as always, and I will see you soon for another video. Bye!